What's up, guys? Welcome to June 6th as we dive into Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 12. The futility of wisdom. I, the teacher, was king of Israel, and I lived in Jerusalem. I devoted myself to search for understanding and to explore by wisdom everything being done under heaven. I soon discovered that God has dealt a tragic existence to the humanity race. I observed everything going on under the sun, and really, it is all meaningless, like chasing the wind. What is wrong cannot be made right. What is missing cannot be recovered. I said to myself, look, I am wiser than any of the kings who ruled in Jerusalem before me. I have greater wisdom and knowledge than any of them. So I set out to learn everything from wisdom to madness and folly. But I learned firsthand that pursuing all this is like chasing the wind. The greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge only increases sorrow. Chapter 2. The futility of pleasure. I say to myself, come on, let's try pleasure. Let's look for the good things in life. But I found that this too was meaningless. So I say, laughter is silly. What good does it do to seek pleasure? After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine, and while I was still seeking wisdom, I clutched at foolishness. In this way, I tried to experience the only happiness most people find during their brief life in this world. I also tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself and by planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks, filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold and treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. So I desired greater than all. So I became greater than all who lived in Jerusalem before me, and my wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in working hard, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless, like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. The wise and the foolish. So I decided to compare wisdom with foolishness and madness, for who can do this better than I, the king? I thought wisdom is better than foolishness, just as light is better than darkness. For the wise can see where they are going, but fools walk in the dark. Yet I saw that the wise and the foolish share the same fate. Both will die. I said to myself, since I would end up the same as the fool, what's the value of all my wisdom? This is all so meaningless. For the wise and the foolish both die. The wise will not be remembered any longer than the fool. In the days to come, both will be forgotten. The futility of work. So I came to hate life because everything done here under the sun is so troubling. Everything is meaningless, like chasing the wind. I came to hate all my hard work here on earth, for I must leave to others everything I have earned. And who tell whether my successors will be wise or foolish? Yet they will control everything I have gained by my skill and hard work under the sun. How meaningless. So I gave up in despair, questioning the value of all my hard work in this world. Some people work wisely with knowledge and skill. They must leave the fruit of their efforts to someone who hasn't worked for it. This too is meaningless, a great tragedy. So what do people get in this life for all their hard work and anxiety? Their days of labor are filled with pain and grief. Even at night, their minds cannot rest. It is all meaningless. So I decided there is nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hands of God, from the hands of God. For who can eat or enjoy anything apart from him? God gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy to those who please him. But if a sinner becomes wealthy, God takes the wealth away and gives it to those who please him. This too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Chapter 3: A time for everything. A time for everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to cry, a time to laugh, a time to grieve, a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, a time to turn away, a time to search and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to quit, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do people really give for all their hard work? I have seen the burden God has placed on them. Yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. So I concluded there is nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can. And people should eat and drink and enjoy the fruit of their labor, for these are fruit gifts from God. And I know that whatever God does is final. Nothing can be added to it or takes from it. God's purpose is that people should fear him. What is happening now has happened before, and what has happened in the future and what will happen in the future has happened before. Before God makes the same things happen over and over again. The injustices of life. I also notice that under the sun there is evil in the courtroom. Yes, even the laws of even the courts of law are corrupted. I said to myself, in due season God will judge everyone, both good and bad, for all their deeds. I also thought about the human condition, how God proves to people that they are like animals, for people and animals share the same fate. Both breathe and both must die. So people have no real advantage over the animals. How meaningless. Both go to the same place. They came from dust and they return to dust. For those who prove that the human spirit goes up and the spirits of animals goes down into the earth. For I see that there is nothing better for people than to be happy in their work. This is our lot in life, and no one can bring us back to see what happens after we die. Again, I observe all the oppression that takes place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, those with no one to comfort them. The oppressors have great power and their victims are helpless. So I concluded that the dead are better off than the living. But most fortunate of all are those who are not yet born, for they have not yet seen all the evil that is done under the sun. I observe that most people are motivated to succeed because they envy their neighbors. For this, too, is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Fools fold their idle hands, leading them to ruin, and yet better to have one handful with quietness than two handfuls with hard work in chasing the wind. The advantages of companionship. I observe yet another example of something meaningless under the sun. This is the case of a man who is all alone, without a child or a brother yet, who works hard to gain as much wealth as he can. But then he asks himself, who am I working for? Why am I giving up so much pleasure now? It is all so meaningless and depressing. Two people are better off than one, for they can help each other succeed. If one person fails, the other can reach out and help. But someone who fails alone is in real trouble. Likewise, two people lying together, close together, can keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? A person stand alone can be attacked and defeated, but 2 can stand back to back and conquer. 3 are better, for a triplet braided cord is not easily broken. The futility of political power. It is better to be a poor but wise youth than an old and foolish king who refuses all advice. Such a youth could rise from poverty and succeed. He might even become king, though he has been in prison. But then everyone rushes to the side of yet another youth who replaces him. Endless crowds stand around him, but then another generation grows up and rejects him too. So it is all meaningless, like chasing the wind. Chapter 5. The importance of fearing God. As you enter the house of God, keep your ears open, your mouth shut. It is evil to make meaningless offerings to God. Don't make rash promises and don't be hasty in bringing matters before God. After all, God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. Too much activities gives you restless dreams. Too many words make you a fool. When you make a promise to God, don't delay in following through, for God takes no pleasure in fools. Keep all the promises you make to Him. It is better to say nothing than to make a promise and not to keep it. Don't let your mouth make you sin, and don't defend yourself by telling the temple messenger that the promise you made was a mistake. That will make God angry, and He might wipe out everything you have achieved. Talk is cheap, like daydreams and other useless activities. Fear God instead. The futility of wealth. Don't be surprised if you see a poor person being oppressed by the powerful and if justice is being miscarried throughout the land. For every official is under orders from a higher up, and matters of just get lost in red tape and bureaucracy. Even the king milks the land for his own profits. Those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. The more you have, the more people to help you spend it. So what good is wealth except perhaps to watch it slip through your fingers? People who work hard sleep well, whether they eat little or much. But the rich Sodom get a good night's sleep. There is another serious problem I have seen under the sun. Hoarding riches harms the savor. Money is put into risky investments that turn sour, and everything is lost. In the end, there is nothing left to pass on to one's children. We all came to the end of our lives as naked and empty-handed as the day we were born. We can't take our riches with us. And this too is a very serious problem. People leave this world no better off than when they came. All their hard work is for nothing, like working for the wind. Though throughout their lives they live under a cloud, frustrated, discouraged, and angry. Even so, I have noticed one thing at least that is good. It is good for people to eat, drink, and enjoy their work under the sun during the short life God has given them, and to accept their lot in life. And it is a good thing to receive wealth from God and the good health to enjoy it. To enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. This is indeed a gift from God. God keeps people so busy enjoying life that they take no time to brood over the past. There is another serious tragedy I've seen under the sun, and it weighs heavily on humanity. God gives some people great wealth and honor and everything they could ever want, but then He does not give them the chance to enjoy these things. They die and someone else, even a stranger, ends up enjoying their wealth. This is meaningless, a sickening tragedy. A man might have 100 children and live to be very old, but if he finds no satisfaction in life, doesn't even get a decent burial, it would have been better for him to be born dead. His birth would have been meaningless, and he would have ended in darkness. He wouldn't even have had a name, and he would never have seen the sun or known of his existence. Yet he would have had more peace than in growing up to be an unhappy man. He might live 1,000 years twice over, but still not find contentment. And since he must die like everyone else, well, what's the use? All people spend their life scratching for food, but they never seem to have enough. So are wise people really better off than fools? Do poor people gain anything by being wise and knowing how to act in front of others? Enjoy what you have rather than desiring what you don't have. Just dreaming about nice things is meaningless, like chasing the wind. The future, determined and unknown. Everything has already been decided. It was known long ago what each person would be, so there's no use arguing with God about your destiny. The more words you speak, the less they mean. So what good are they? In the few days of our meaningless lives, who knows how our days can best be spent? Our lives are like a shadow. Who can tell what will happen on this earth after we are gone? And so that's the end for today. Yeah, let's kind of like dive into each of the categories that the author of Ecclesiastes. I still struggle pronouncing the name, but let's kind of dive into like deeper into like each section. But the overall, what this person is trying to say, I feel like, is that whatever we gain, like this is what we talk. This is what I tell people, is that whatever you gain on this world, it never lasts. It's all gonna die off. So what's the point of putting so much effort and time into crafting these things, that building up popularity, building up projects and all that? What's the point of that if we don't have a relationship with God? Because we are all designed to die. And so the only hope that we have is like knowing, like, if there's an afterlife, that is something that's called heaven and hell. What's the harm in believing in heaven? What's the point? What's the harm in believing in a God? You are risking nothing for believing in God. But if you don't believe in God, you are risking your soul. You're risking your life. You by not believing, by not accepting God, you're risking your soul for a possible eternal separation from God, which is hell and stuff. And so it's like kind of diving into this mindset. It's like, yes, I mean, obviously you want to take things seriously in this lifetime, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't have a relationship with God, then anything that you achieve in this world is meaningless. At least that's how I see it. But if you guys have like a better understanding of it, please let me know things. But yeah, so the wisdom. So the author writes about this idea of wisdom and the fool, and how, like, at the end of the day, all of them are gonna die. But the thing I disagree with this author about is that they have this idea that what was it, that the wise will not be remembered any longer than the fool in the days to come. Both will be forgotten. Well, if that's the case, then how are we still remembering Jesus? Then how are we still remembering Noah, Adam and Eve, Abraham, David, Joseph, and like all the Ruth, like all these people, yet we remember. So that's the thing, is like, I don't think, yes, we all gonna physically die, I understand that part, but our legacy, what we leave behind, is really important, because it could always affect the future of people who are impacted by the lifestyle that we live with. Or not, but if you want to submerge yourself just within the society, then yeah, it's really hard to kind of making a footprint, because it's like you're just basically flowing with the society that's designated for your soul to be killed, you know. And so yeah, so the first thing he talks about is the fertility of wisdom, and how it's like how I'm trying to say it, it's like, the greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge only increases sorrow. I mean, that's kind of true. It's like, as more wisdom you gain in life, the more you realize, the more true wisdom, I guess, more like true wisdom you gain, the more more sorrow and grief you're gonna feel, because you realize like people around you are not living the lifestyle that's maybe in accordance to your beliefs or accordance to your wisdom. But the things like if our wisdom and knowledge are in line with God, we realize like this world is sickening. It is hard sometimes to exist, because you realize like many of your friends and family members, people, your co-workers, everybody around you, like it feels like none of them are able to seem to live a lifestyle that's honorable to God. It's like they could claim to be Christians, they claim to love God, but anybody could claim to be whatever. But like you have to actually to live a lifestyle of what you say is a whole different sets of task, you know. And then so yeah, so he kind of talks about the wisdom of the futility of wisdom. Then he talks about the futility of pleasure, and how he's like, okay, let's try to do the let's just pleasure ourselves, right? Let's just pleasure ourselves, make ourselves feel wonderful, make like everything like our earthly flesh, let the earthly flesh be pleasurable to us. But then even that, it's like he said, it's like, but as I looked at everything I have worked so hard to accomplish, it was all so meaningless. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. That's the thing. Is like pleasure. It is a temporary pleasures. But again, once your body dies, it's basically saying like your pleasures, your earthly pleasures are limited. Like the time you have, well, that is limited as well, and things. And so he said that's not even worth chasing for either. It's like the whole idea that why chase pleasure after pleasure if you're gonna die with the pleasure, if your body's gonna die with your pleasure and stuff, if that makes sense. Yeah, and then the futility of work. Again, same mentality. You can do all that kind of work. You can really work hard. You can really earn so much money. But at the end of the day, it's like, what is the point, right? Because he said like people are gonna, our successors are gonna gain our wealth, gain our wealth. It's like if our successors gonna gain it from without really working for it, then what's the point of doing it? If we're talking about justice, it's like it's unfair for a life, for somebody to work really hard, then realize that they have to, once they die, the next generation who has done nothing, absolutely nothing to work, they gain the wealth and the position of the person who actually did all the hard work, you know. And so there's something that Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11 says, God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. And that's to explains like how everything, it's like time, it's like this is the thing, it's like about this book is like it's all about timing, right? It talks about how time, it's like when you are when we exist in a time zone, when we exist in a timeline, we know that it's limited. And so it's like for a guy to put things, he had beautiful things, he put beautiful things within the time that he has given us. And he also puts the desires of our heart, puts the desires of his heart into our hearts, and see whether or not we will accept those things or not and stuff. And so yeah, chapter 3 verses 1 to 8 talks about how like the different times for different seasons for different timing and stuff. And then yeah, what do people really get for all their hard work? I've seen the burden of God has placed upon us, yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart. It's like, I think that's the thing about our hearts, is like we want to exist for eternity, but we can't. Earthly wise, we can't. And so like to gain that eternity, that's when we have to believe in Jesus. That's why we have to believe in God. That's where we have to accept God and try to live out his ways, you know. That's the only way to really fulfill our soul's desires, which is to, I think majority of us wants to live on, live not just live on, but live like a exist for like a happier ending, like a yeah, a joyful ending. But how can we do that if we cannot accept God into our life? If we are soaked into the societies, soaked within our society, it's like how are we supposed to gain eternal life if we hold on to things that are temporary? And then so yeah, then the author just went to the injustice of life, and how like there's gonna be corruption in the court, in the law itself, and how like God in the season, in due season, God will judge everyone, both good and bad, for all their deeds. That's kind of like, he's not wrong about that. It's like that is what's going to happen at the end of time, at the time when we die, is when we go in front of God, and he will judge us based off of the fruits that we bear. Do we bear good fruit, or do we bear bad fruit? And he will judge based on that, you know. So even if our life, so even if the justice of this world fails, it does not mean that the justice of God will fail. If the justice of God will endure, is the just one. That's why it's there. That's why like I don't know. It's like that's why you don't want to be. That's why we don't want to be playing with the scripture. We don't want to like manipulate the scripture so that we are putting our own lives in jeopardy and saying like, "Oh God, I thought you said this," even though clearly in the Bible, either it's being said something else. We just take it out of context and stuff. And then yeah, it's like I observed that most people are motivated to succeed because they envy their neighbors, but this too is meaningless, like chasing the wind. I mean, that's the thing. Like we don't have to. And let me just kind of finish up with this part so that we can. And then he talks about the advantage of companionship, and how it's important to be in a relationship, how it's important to be in friendships with multiple people who can hold you accountable, who can help you through different life seasons of life. And then talks about the futility of political power. Everybody rushes to get power, and how like at the end of the day, that power, you're gonna lose all that power as well. Then it talks about the importance of fearing God, and how like don't delay in the fall for God, and then how like he talks about what as you enter the house of God, keep your ears open, your mouth shut. It is evil to make endless offerings to God. Don't make rash promises, and don't be hasty in bringing matters before God. After all, God is in heaven and you are here on earth. So let your words be few. And that's the thing, guys. It's like he talks about all these things of the earthly things being like meaningless. And it's like out of nowhere he talks about the love, like the fearing, the importance of fearing God. It shows like fearing God must be another level, must be so much more important than the things that he has listed, the futility of different things, and how those things are gonna die off in things. And then he kind of dives into the futility of wealth, and how I think we kind of got this point like we are the wealth that in our life that's gonna die off anyways. How he says riches harms the saver, how we can be really trying to be rich, but it's like well, if you try to hold, like if you try to save all those money, you're hurting yourself. It's like what's the point of making money if all you're gonna do is save it forever and stuff, right? And then he talks about how like, and this is important. It's like you know that like if you love money, it's like you'll be keep chasing after money, but at the end of the day, it's like money will never bring you satisfaction. It's gonna die as well. And so yeah, a man might have 100 children and be very old, but if he finds no satisfaction in life and doesn't even get a decent burial, it would have been better for him to be dead, to be born dead. It's like, these are things, guys, like, I don't think people fully understand. I mean, not fully understand, but the importance of why we need to have God in our life. Because like God is the only thing that is alive. God is the only thing that's eternal, that will last forever. But if we don't cling on to something that's lasting forever and cling on to the temporary things, then everything's gonna die off. And so you can have a meaningful life. I really believe you can have a meaningful and impactful life if you have God in your life. Because you know that you are doing something beyond what the naked eye could see, beyond our human understanding, which is life on this earth. And so being able to have God in your life, it makes my life so much more meaningful. I have things I want to accomplish now. I have things that I want to do that are like kind of a burning passion for me, which is like sharing the gospel to people, to help them understand, like, yes, we may not be able to see God, we may not experience God sometimes, but it's like there's something beyond this. There's something beyond just this life that's so much more important things. That we cannot focus our eyes on the things of this world, because if we focus on the things of this world, we're gonna die with it. But if we focus on the things of God and follow the things of God, then that would last forever. Because you know why? Because God is eternal. He lasts forever and stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to spend like, so that last thing I want to do is like read the time for everything. Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 through 8. A time for everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to run away, a time to research and a time to quit searching, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. So may you guys go and walk with God.